Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Strip by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, and all the fancy naked people in between. Happy 2022. I am officially recording my very first episode of the new year. So excited to get this done and so excited to kind of embark on a brand new season of exciting new guests and topics all about sex work and aiming to destigmatize the industry. I am your host, Steph Sia, aka Kimchi. I am currently not on stage right now because some clubs are closed at the moment, but I am a stripper. I'm also a digital content creator, so I have an OnlyFans, make custom videos, and do like audio content and stuff like that. And I am also a former sugar baby from a long time ago, which I'll be drawing a lot of the experiences on today's episode with that, because we are going to be talking about getting scammed, being scammed, and getting taken advantage of, which I think is a huge, huge topic that is actually pretty quite common. I mean, really in any industry, but I don't know. For me, it's just so personal. It's so vulnerable. And it really is sometimes hard to talk about. I did mention a little bit and opened up a little bit about that in the last episode, which was the AMA. Because some people were asking about, like, what about sugaring and like what are your experiences and safety, all that stuff. So which led me to bringing this particular guest onto the show today. So I am bringing on Alexis, who is a former full service escort, and she's going to be telling us her story and notions in terms of like how she was scammed in the industry. And we're going to be talking about this topic because I just feel like it's a topic that we don't talk about quite enough, even though it happens all the time. Like even just this morning, I was reading in one of the subreddits I'm a member of, and somebody was asking like, oh, like I have this like $6,000 arrangement, and you know, like he wants me to do this, this, and this, and like, should I get out of it? Like he's doing things that I don't want to be doing. And everyone's like, did he even pay you yet? Yeah, so we're going to be talking about instances like that. Those are just examples, but and then of course a lot of you listeners also shared stories, which I'm also going to be reading on the show as well today. So without further ado, Alexis, are you there?
I am here. Hello.
Hello, welcome. I'm so excited to get to know you, to share your story. And like, I'm just really happy that we connected. And I'm so happy to hear that, you know, part of my own personal story and my own experience with sugaring in the last episode resonated with you and inspired you to come on. So thank you.
Hey, of course. No, I heard it and I was like, me too.
Yeah, it was a lot of me too when that episode came out. So I'm so glad that, you know, part of that like touched you in some way, and we got to talking and we're like, we need to talk about this, and how come I haven't done an episode on this? So thank you for bringing that to light and for coming onto the show. I described you as a former former escort, but if you wanted to go ahead and give yourself your own fancy definition in terms of like your own words, in terms of who you are, what it is that you do, and go.
well, yes, you're correct. I used to be a full service sex worker, but nowadays I've stopped doing that, but I don't meet anybody new anymore because it was a stressful period in my life, and I kind of turned to it because of a breakup. So I had like this horrendous breakup, and I was like, oh my god, I how am I gonna get over this? And for me personally, I'm a very sexual person, and I I'm not good with what is the word? I'm not good with casual. So
Oh, gotcha.
I
Me too. So much
right?
in common.
I'm like, dude, I wanna get laid, but, like, then I'll get attached. So, my thought was, like, if I make it transactional, then there is no emotional attachment. And
Right.
so that's why I did it, and, like, I enjoyed the sex, but, yeah, that's kind of how I came to be. Again.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, like, you might have heard of my last story too. Like, of course, like that's kind of how I broke into sugaring,
Mhm.
was also through a really big breakup that like I risked way too much, and it was an abusive relationship and
Mhm.
just not pretty. And I was like, well, I need an ego boost, so I guess I'll do this because you know what? I like older men anyway, so
Yeah.
like why not make money?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So yeah, like how was your experience with going like full service and
Well, it was
diving into that?
it was scary at first because, like, I I basically I went on the Craigslist personals. This was back when they still had those.
Yes.
And, like, I saw this ad, like, "Make 100 grand a year. Are you hot? Are you young?" And I'm like, "Yeah, totally." Like, I answered this ad, and it was these 2 guys, 2 white guys,
Mhm.
that had a apartment downtown where they would host other escorts, and you would be working with other girls there, and they would kind of, like, provide the security, and I put that in air quotes because, you know.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I got started, and I met this guy downtown in a fancy car, and I was very nervous about it. I was like, "I don't know if I'm hot enough to do this," like, and, like,
Mhm.
I knew I wasn't unattractive, but I was like, I don't know if I'll make it in this industry, yada, yada, yada." So anyways, that's kind of the ad I answered, and I got to working for these 2 men who were just, well, glorified pimps, and the
Yeah.
and I think I worked there for maybe 2 or 3 weeks,
Okay.
before I was like, "Wait a fucking second, excuse my language, but why am I giving half my money to somebody that, like,
Yes.
what are they doing for me?" Um, and so that's when I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna try to do this on my own," and I kinda learned about, Leo List and Seeking Arrangement, and I did that for a
Mhm.
while.
Yeah, how did you find out about Leo's List, and how did you find out about Seeking Arrangement? Like, how did you encounter that, and when did you feel like, "Okay, I feel like I know enough," if you felt that way? I'm not saying that you did or you did not, but I know you were, like, irked by, like, "Hey, like, why are these people taking such a huge cut?" Like, what gave you the courage to finally leave? What was it, mainly the money aspect?
Yeah, yeah, it was mainly the money and the fact that, like, one of the guys had, well, it's kind of like, I guess he raped me,
Oh my
because
gosh, I'm so
I
sorry.
he's like, "Oh, so do you do anal?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna show you." Um,
Oh my god.
and it was just this really gross experience that I was like, and then, of course, he didn't pay me. And it was just, like, a really shitty thing, and then I'm like, "Do I really wanna work for somebody like that? Absolutely not." And I learned about Leo List because they did the pictures, and then they told me, like, "Oh, we're gonna put your ad up on this site." I didn't
Gotcha.
even really know what Leo List was before, I started, and then he put my ad up in that, and one of the girls I was talking to, she had been there for, like, a couple of months, and she's like, "Dude, I'm getting out of here as soon as I can, like, they're just,
Bullshit.
yeah, basically. It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, they're charging this much for, like, to have, like, a webcam on there." And,
Oh my
I
god.
just that's why I wanted to leave, and then I ended up looking at my ad and being like, "Okay, what are keywords? What do people like to see? Yada, yada, yada." Um, and then I went and decided to make my own ad. And then
There we go.
and I heard about Seeking Arrangement from that same, girl. 'Cause she's like, "Yeah,
Okay.
I do that, but sometimes it's not really worth it, you know?"
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I know all about that.
the reason So the reason that I wanted to do escorting is because it's just like, "Okay, here's the deal. You give me this money, I do this, you go home." And
Mhm.
it's less about hustling because 'cause I'm not a hustler and I'm not a born hustler at all. If I was, I probably would have done a lot better in the industry. Like, I genuinely enjoyed sex, and I'm like, I wanna do this because I like getting laid, but I have feelings, so yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, well, okay, well, I'll back up. First of all, I'm really sorry that that happened to you, and I'm really sorry if you didn't want to share that, and if I ever pushed you to say that, I'm really, really sorry.
No, no,
Like
no.
that.
No, I am an open book, and I want people to know about this so they can be aware.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for your bravery in sharing that. And yeah, unfortunately, like I remember just speaking with other sex workers too. And like, yeah, you're definitely in, from what I can observe, definitely like a pimping situation. And your pimp, that sound like he was just trying to break you there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And yeah, like that's so shitty. But like, I'm happy to hear about the other girl that you're working with
Mhm.
that was able to be like, hey, like there's a way out
Yeah.
of this particular situation and you can make money on your own terms. So like I'm glad that that person was there for you. And we're going to go into the camaraderie aspect later
Mhm.
and allyship as well as like how important support is later on the episode. But so you basically started going independent after that.
Mhm.
What are some struggles and some challenges that you faced?
The oh, so many. The most annoying part of escorting to me is dealing with the phones. So dealing with the
Mm,
people that text you or call you, and it's like 95% of the time they're there to waste your time and never end up booking. So it's like I struggled a lot with that, and it got to the point where I think I got a little bit jaded near the end, where I wasn't as nice on the phones, and I'm just like, dude, just don't waste my fucking time. Like, come on. So it was that, and then the fact that like I didn't have an in call, so I
mm,
did it from my house like a jackass.
mm.
But like I would never meet a new person at my house. I'd never give my address. I always met at like a specific place that had cameras, so I would park and then just in case something were to happen.
Good, good. I'm so glad that you were kind of forthright in thinking about this, or like, or was this like, in terms of safety and boundaries, like, was this something that you were already thinking about when you
Mhm.
were about to leave? Oh, yes. Okay, cool.
For sure, because it's like it's dangerous out there, and like when I was working, the only time I would post my ad is like in the middle of the night
Hmm.
because it was cheaper, and that's like I didn't want to have people coming in and out of my house all day, and like and I'd never have more than 3 clients in a day because I just like the amount of money that I was getting, it was just so much more than what I would have made at a regular job. And I'm not like, I didn't feel the need to see several clients a day so I could make so much more money. I'm like, I literally
Hmm.
just wanted to get laid and paid.
Yeah, yeah, totally. That's which is great, by the way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, and like again, there's like no specific rules on how you want to run your business,
Yeah.
right? And that's the one of the great things about sex work is like having that flexibility in terms of like, okay, well, you know what, I only need this much today, and like I'm feeling tired today, so maybe I'm not going to do this, and we'll just work harder tomorrow or something,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
like you have that, which is really really nice, and I'm glad that you know it was working out for you. So that's good to hear. I mean, we're gonna start going into some muddier topics now too. I mean, we're gonna go into like, the focal point of the episode too.
Well,
So
well, I like it dirty, so let's do it.
you're so great. Yeah. So I mean, there's so many instances where we can get taken advantage of, and maybe at this point we'll speak about getting taken advantage of and getting scammed on the sex worker side by the client. So
Mhm.
if you feel comfortable, do you want to share some instances where this might have happened to you?
Yeah. So I'm a very trusting person, and I guess too trusting for that industry. And I think I got scammed about 4 times or so because I didn't learn after the first, second, or third to always get the money first. Like, that's the number 1 rule of hoeing.
Yes, yes,
And
it is.
and so, like, I would trust people, and then, of course, they'd screw off and not pay me or whatever, and that was my biggest problem with getting scammed. It was just that I was too trusting, And he'd be like, oh yeah, I got the money, it's in my pocket, I'll pay you after. I'm like, well, the other thing that contributed to that, honestly, was I had a pretty decent cocaine habit at the time. I don't do that anymore, obviously, but at the time, I kind of used that to like numb any emotional trauma I had. Like when I had that breakup, I didn't
Oh,
actually process it.
yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm just gonna shove everything else on top of it and forget about that and still get laid and be happy. And I wasn't.
Mhm.
And so it's like I started using drugs, and then if you're using drugs and you have a client who's using drugs, he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll go get us some drugs, and then and I'll totally pay you after."
Oh my gosh.
I, I
No.
know, I know. I think like at the time, oh my god, awful, awful. But now looking back, I'm like, geez, like I wish I had somebody to talk to or like read about stories like this so that I
Yeah.
could better prepare myself. And I thought I got scammed once, but he ended up paying in the end. But once I went with a client up to Whistler and we got a hotel room, had some fun, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, oh, I just got to go run out and grab something. I'm like, okay, sounds
Uh-oh.
good.
Oh my
And then
god.
like hours later, I'm like, how do I get home? Like, where is this guy?
Fuck.
He wouldn't answer his phone. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. and, and then I ended up having to get this like $200 or $300 cab ride home.
Oh my
And
god.
yeah, no, it was not a fun time. Eventually, I got back in touch with him and he paid me. And I was like, thank you. You should have paid me double,
Wow.
but Jesus. Um,
What the fuck was his story? Like, how did you manage to get the payment after that? Because that's like, wow, kudos to you.
yeah.
Like, wow, it's amazing.
Well, I trusted him again, like I shouldn't have, but like I didn't realize that he had paid for the room with cash.
Oh,
So he paid for the room with
what?
cash, and then I ordered like room service and that, and it was fine. And then it ended up using up that, what do you call that? Like the
I know what you mean. It's
yeah.
like the money that's there. Yeah, it's
Yeah, anyways, I got
that
stuck there.
doubles.
And then I'm like, oh no. And so that was one of the times. And that was one of the more scary instances because I'm like, I am in like a whole other city and
Yeah.
I don't know anyone and I'm not sure how to get home and I am like hungover as balls. And so
Oh my god.
yeah, so I'm lucky that that one ended up working out, but like when you get into drugs that's kind of a hard point. So like when I was working, I always told myself I'm like I will never work for drugs. I'll work for money and then I'll
Mhm.
buy drugs. But I'll
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
work for that. And I never did, but I did end up using my money on drugs eventually. I never did before because it was always provided. But then
Yeah.
once you get a little bit addicted to it, then it's like, oh, okay, well I gotta go get some more, yada yada yada. It was like
Totally.
a whole crazy, crazy time.
Yeah. It was a darker time for
It
you.
was. It was.
Sure. So, and we don't really talk about that too much. Like I've spoken on a couple
Mhm.
episodes as well, but like, did you want to speak a little bit about like drugs and sex work a bit?
Yeah, well, like, so that's it's so common getting into drugs when you're doing this line of work, especially if you're working at night because everybody's partying, and like, oh, let's get some hookers and blow,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and so it becomes really easy to become addicted. Like it got to the point where I was doing it at work and like my real job,
Mm.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
this is not good, and I also used it honestly, like it's weird to say, but when a client would go home, I'd have this like empty feeling where I was like lonely. And not that I didn't want them to leave, but like I I actually felt lonely. And I'm like, oh well, but then I'd see the cash and be like, oh, I'm rich, yay! And then I can just go buy my happiness. And it turns out that you can't do that. Um, but
Yes.
I do want to say that like one of the best things about going through that industry is it gave me the ability to realize that money does not buy happiness. I always thought it did. I was always trying to make more money. And then it was to the point where I had like stacks and stacks of money, and I could just fan it out on my bed and go lay in it. I'm like, I should be happier. I should. And I wasn't, because I was surrounding myself with the wrong people, working at night, doing drugs. And so it gave me that realization that I could, like, I'm the type that needs to like make those mistakes to realize it. So I did
Mm-hmm.
really realize it. And now I'm like, okay, so money is not the be all and end all. I just want to be happy.
Yeah, and I feel like I feel you with that because like when I was a sugar baby too, I was like, I'm living the life. I
What?
love this lifestyle. I'm swimming in money. This is great. I'm going places, eating at fancy restaurants, drinking champagne, like
Mhm.
the whole like really stereotypical sugar baby like image,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So like I definitely can resonate with that because like at the end of the day and like how I wanted to kind of exit out of that because I was in a long-term relationship with like well, long-term sorry arrangement with
Mhm.
one of my sugar daddies. I was just so like dark and like depressed
Mhm.
that I was like
Exactly.
I need to get out of here.
I think I think that's, like, super common because, like, if you have sex with somebody and you have a good time and you even make emotional connections with these people, you can, and then when they leave, it's like, "Oh my god, I am so fucking lonely." Like, so lonely, and it's not a nice feeling, honestly.
Totally, I hear you. The good thing about that can be a bad thing with doing full service,
Mhm,
but like my experience like as a sugar baby, which is basically pretty much almost the same thing,
mhm.
but like the difference between sugar babying, gosh, I haven't talked in so long, and escorting, in my opinion, was that like there was so much more emotional labor
Mm. Oh,
that
totally.
was just so drawn out and so much more time spent with these sugar daddies that like and I wasn't really getting the full compensation for when I was younger because I was like, well, he paid for dinner
Yeah,
and we're going on this trip and he got this nice hotel
yeah,
and like yada yada yada.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like it's just tricky how we kind of like weigh the pros and the cons and weigh like okay, what is a good form of quote unquote like acceptable
Mhm,
payment?
mhm.
And I'm not here to judge anyone in terms of like if you prefer money or if you prefer, getting your rent paid or if you prefer gifts or designer bags or whatever it is. Like it's just in the beginning it's really really hard to navigate, especially like being by yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned to me like in our previous chats how isolating sex work
Mhm.
was before. Do you want to speak a little bit about that cuz I have lots to share on that.
Oh, yeah. It really for me, it was especially isolating because I found once I started doing a lot of drugs and doing it all at night, I'd sleep all day. And then I'd wake up in the evening and it starts to get dark, and then I would repeat this cycle where it's like you're only meeting the most fucked up people of society that are calling for like hookers at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. And so it's like, and by the way, I am totally fine to refer to myself as a former hooker. I say take back the term. There's nothing wrong with it.
There you go.
Um,
Love that.
I guess hookers are more referred to as like people on the street corner, but whatever. I'm a high class hooker. Hmm.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
it is. It's an isolating thing, and it's because you can't talk about it with other people. Like I, my roommate at the time, poor girl. My roommate at the time was just she was the only one I was really talking to about it. And it's like, I actually looked at our messages from years and years ago through Messenger, and because I was debating going back into sex work, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should. And then I got to reading all this, and it's like, I guess I romanticized it because I
Yes.
was like, oh yeah, I'm making all this money, everything's great. And I saw this one message that I sent to her, and I'm like, dude, I just got to fuck a dude that looked like oh my god, who was it? Bradley Cooper looked exactly like him, and I'm like, you paid me to fuck you? all right. And so, like, stories like that, I'm like, yeah, this is so great. This is the best thing ever. And then, but I keep scrolling and it's just like negativity. And
Mm.
you do romanticize your past, right?
You
So,
definitely do. Absolutely.
yeah. And it's like you can't talk with other people about it. And so it is isolating. And you said you have something to share. Please do.
Yeah, going back to like getting scammed and like not being able to share anything, like it was really like how I felt. Like I could still remember those experiences so vividly. Like I remember
Mhm.
I was at one hotel in downtown, and I remember this guy was just like trying to get me to bed
Yeah, yeah,
too. And of course, like I didn't get the money up front. And this is
yeah.
something
Mhm.
I don't really talk about a lot, but like I remember this so clearly in my mind. And him leaving, and he's like, "Oh, you can stay in the hotel if you want." And then
Mhm.
she's like, "Where's the money?" And then like me feeling like really shitty about myself, but then
Yeah,
not having any comrades to speak about this with. So you just kind of bury it within yourself. And then you
totally.
just feel like shit, and then it happens to you again, and then you feel like shit again, and it's really
Yeah.
bad
Just like
cycle. Yeah, it is. And it's so like sad because like yes, like getting scammed is such a vulnerable thing. And it's something that like, and I'm not making assumptions, but like my own thing in terms
mhm.
of like not admitting that this happened to you.
Yeah, it is like it is a shameful thing. It was shameful for me when it did happen, and like I'll give you one story that it it makes me kick myself. But so I was seeing a client. It was at like I don't know a hotel or the home. I don't remember. But regardless, this I didn't get the money up front because yeah, anyway, I didn't get the money up front, and this guy's like, "Oh, I lost like $500." Like, what the fuck? Where is it? So we're all looking around the apartment, high as fuck, and I find it behind a dresser, and I give it to him. I
What?
give it to him. I know because I'm like,
No.
oh, well, and then he ended up paying me half of what I was supposed to be paid, and I'm like,
No.
I am honest to a fault, and that is like part of the reason why I'm just not um, I felt like I wasn't really cut out for it because I couldn't like be a dick, you know?
Mm. That's
Oh,
really
I'm just choked at that one, especially. Fucking honesty.
yeah. I mean, honesty is a great policy, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I mean, it sucks I didn't get the money up front. Like I was definitely guilty of that before too.
Mhm.
But that also brings me, and that's actually a great transitional point to talk about the dishonesty that's also really
Rampant?
rampant. Yes. Oh my god, great minds think alike. Really rampant in this industry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that that I think gets talked about a lot in the form of bragging.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it is not the way that I personally conduct my own business because I've just heard again bragging, just hearing it in like the stripper locker room or like on some of my Facebook groups and Discord groups, be like, oh, like just explain. I don't want to say anything specific, but like
Mhm.
just bragging about like, oh, like I totally scammed this guy and I tricked him to getting him to get more money. And like to a certain extent, like, yes, there are manipulation tactics that where
Mhm.
you can, which is a sales tactic,
Yep, yep.
which I think is fine.
Yeah.
But when you're intentionally scamming, and I think there's a really, really fine line around this, I don't, I personally don't think that is great for your work ethic.
I don't think it is either. Like, that's, I I worked for there was another girl that I worked for that did that. I guess I can share that. She like when I started working for her, I actually met her through Seeking Arrangement because her boyfriend was on there. So her boyfriend was on Seeking Arrangement looking at blah blah blah. And we ended up meeting up and he's like, "Yeah, my girlfriend does this and she has like a place and they do out calls, yada yada yada. Do you want to meet her?" So we met, and she was like a really wonderful person. Albeit a bit jaded, but like it was her whole thing was to scam guys. She bragged about. She's like, I think I maybe have to fuck 1 in 100 clients, and I'm like, but you go there, and they're assuming that you're going to have sex with them, and then you just run off. Like what the fuck?
Oh,
Yeah. So I worked for her for I think 2 weeks or a week before I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I it makes me feel shitty, and the last call that I went on, she we were talking in the car afterwards. She's like, "Look, I can tell you feel like guilty about this, but that guy's a fucking piece of shit. They're all pieces of shit, and so just take the money, get it when you can, and like don't feel bad about him. I've scammed him 3 times." And I'm like, "Oh my
Oh,
god."
wow.
And the saddest part was like we're there and she went to go grab something and he like came to me, he's like, "Did I feel like I recognize her." Like, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who she used to be or whatever. And then it's just like, and then we ended up leaving without performing services and just
Mhm.
left him there. And he was so lonely and sad. And I'm like, this is fucked up. I can't do that to people. That's
Yeah.
mean. But the way she did it is she like would put up the ads, but it didn't say full service. So
Mm.
you get there, you collect the money, and then you're like, oh, it's 500 extra.
Oh, that's how it's connected.
Yeah. And I'm like, I just can't do that. I'm not comfortable with it. And like I worked really, really hard and made hardly any money from her. And I'm like we get to this person's house and they pay an extra $1,000 to sleep with us.
Mhm.
And I end up making like 250 on that call.
What?
Yeah. And
Oh
I'm
my
like,
god.
she's like, oh well, we have to pay for this and that and that. And I'm like, okay, 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 we're done here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I would never like I don't judge her because she had been doing it for so long and she was clearly jaded by it. I would be
Yeah.
too. But
Yeah. And that's her
and
thing.
yeah, yeah, and like if you're doing that at fucking 16 years old, like that poor girl. So I was like, you know, this isn't working. I'm done here. And she's like, I understand. And that was the end of that.
Yeah, like for me it's just like if you're doing this like if like that was clearly like her thing. Right. I'm just worried about like some kind of long-term consequences, especially if it's happening to like younger sex workers because
Mhm.
I feel like that can really form your basis on how you work and
Oh,
also
totally.
like help shape how you treat people, which I think is really dangerous. Like I think with like more experienced workers, like it might be a little bit okay depending, but it's such a gray area that I personally don't like to be dishonest in that type of way.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm like I I really believe in integrity and
Mhm.
like if you're gonna make a deal, that's the deal. Like if you go
Yeah.
full service and full service, there you go. But I mean, like this woman, I feel bad for her because she was clearly like emotionally vacant.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and I don't regret working for her, and it's like it kind of gave me a whole other view of sex work, and I'm like, okay, so this is how it's done. This is why so many potential clients are like, oh, are you a scammer? Are you a scammer? Because it happens all the time.
Totally. Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up too because, like, yeah, like I remember getting those messages when I was in seeking arrangement. They were like, "Well, I've gone scam before, and I'm not going to send you money right away." I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Well,
yeah.
this is like how I do it," and like,
Yeah.
unfortunately, to a fault, it's pretty true because there are some people, and I don't want to call them bad apples, but like for me, like that's just not how I personally work. And it kind of ruins it for the good ones that are out here trying to just make an honest
Yeah,
buck doing what we love to do, which is sex.
yeah,
So it makes it really tricky because it also like screws things up. And there's a couple stories here that I'll share later on in the show that pertain to this very situation.
mhm,
So it's really tricky. It really, really is messy too. And I just feel like if you're offering something, if something is in your ad, then you should provide that unless
yeah,
you're in a dangerous, life-threatening situation, or if your boundaries are not being respected, then I think in that situation that's okay if you're gonna like keep the deposit or whatnot and get the hell out of there. I think
yeah,
those situations is fine. But when
Mhm.
you're intentionally, doing this with that
Yeah,
kind of motivation, I think is problematic.
I agree. And then the way you would do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you're gonna scam
Mhm.
people there, you're gonna scam people everywhere else too.
Yeah,
And
and other parts of your life, which
yeah,
is why I was like psychologically, like, and emotionally, like I don't know how healthy that kind of work ethic is,
yeah.
which again, largely why I disagree with that kind of way of working.
Mhm.
So, which is really sad, but like, we've all
I
talked
also
about
I believe in karma. And
it.
so I'm like,
Me too.
if I am gonna just like if I'm gonna screw someone over, eventually I'm sure that'll come and kick me in the ass. So I'd rather treat others the way I want to be treated.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I know there's a lot of clients that listen to the show as well. So there are a lot of us honest sex workers out there too. If this gives anyone peace of mind, you know, there there's some good ones out there, some good gems. So
It's true, and part of the reason that the scamming thing is happening more often is because they got rid of Backpage.
mhm.
So back when I was doing it, there was Backpage and Leo List, and Backpage was like generally full of scammers, and so when that page shut down, they all moved to Leo List. So
Mm.
it's there were like a lot more scams going on, and that's kind of like I think that's around the time I stopped doing it, like I maybe a year after, I don't know. But
Yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of scams, and it's unfortunate.
totally. What are your thoughts on like catfishing in terms of ads?
Oh,
Like I know some agencies do
yeah,
that. Like they post like some porn star picture and then like obviously the client comes in and they're like, that's not
yeah, yeah.
that's not real. That's not the person that I am like getting services for. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that happens so often. I
Yeah, it's a huge
so that those first two pimps that I worked for, I had booked something. I had booked something. The guy showed up, and I opened the door, and he's like, "You're not 19," and I'm like, "Number one,
mm.
you," and and then the
That's
other
okay.
gross part about it is like, well, I've got a friend here who has braces, and he's like, okay.
What?
Yeah,
What?
because she looked like 18 or something. She was 20 something,
Oh
but
my god.
but yeah, and it was just like that's fucking
That is
gross, dude.
gross.
But okay, because like I didn't know what age I was. I didn't know like much about myself.
Yeah.
Like back then, I was another name,
Mhm.
and it just
Oh my gosh.
yeah, and it's yeah they do the bait and switch and that, and it's so common.
And it
Yeah,
works
yeah.
so many times. I've heard so many stories from clients saying like, "Well, this is what happened to me," and like,
Mhm.
but you can't really blame them because like that's something that's being advertised, and then like you're like, "Well," and like, what
Yeah.
are you supposed to do? Say no?
Yeah. And like and sometimes they do, but like yeah, I do get what you're saying, and it's again the word rampant. It is rampant
Yes,
in that industry.
it is. Like, and I don't think there's like really any way to regulate that.
No, no, because they have like Leolist has the verified ads or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, but
Mm.
it's still not like you just have to hold up a piece of paper, right, and put your name on.
Ah,
But yeah, it's another unfortunate thing about the industry, and it happens all the fucking time.
all the fucking time. And like, you know what? The industry is great, but there's also some ugly sides, and we gotta be transparent about it too, and we gotta talk about it, which is why you're on the show. So
Well, yeah, 'cause, like, I wouldn't wanna encourage some, like, 19-year-old girl to go out and, like, "Oh, you can live the glamour life, everything's great," and, like, you don't wanna encourage that, and especially, like, I think about it, had I started at 18, I when I was in it, I was like, "Oh, I wish I started this earlier, I could have, like, done
mhm.
so much more," and it's not true, like, if I started doing that at 19, I would be a total mess now, you
Yes.
know? I
Oh my
so,
god,
yeah.
100%. Like, I've spoken about this briefly on some other bonus episodes, but, like, seeking arrangements, like, with whole marketing scheme at some point was like, "Oh, if you use your .edu, like, email address from, like, your university or college,
Yeah.
then we'll give you a premium membership."
That's gross.
That's gross, right? So then yeah, and it's kind of funny, but it's just like also like, ew, that's like so like you're setting these young women up, like 18,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's younger. that are on there
Yeah.
too, you know,
I
like
know.
setting those up, and it's just like it just makes me like cringe just like
Yeah.
thinking about that.
Like, I don't think I started until I was, like, 25 or something, and that's, like, when your brain's done developing, when that's who I am as a person. I like sex, I'll do it transactionally, that's fine.
Yeah.
But had I started had I started younger, I don't know where I would be.
No, I am with you with that too. Like I also started around like what was I? Yeah, 25, 24, 25 as
Mhm.
well. And even still I was still kind of like cementing who I was and what my values
Mhm, mhm.
were. But still I think I had like my head screwed on a bit more than, you know, possibly some other girls on the site that were like fresh, you know,
Yeah.
out of high school and stuff too. And I had like lots of sugar daddies comment on that too. Like, I want to be able to have a conversation with someone that has like more experience, like more life experience and like a bit more, you know, like education and stuff too. And like if I was to start like a secret engagement account when I was like 19, I would be like, I don't know where I'd be right now. I
Yeah,
really don't
and
know.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, it's just yeah, I got that too when I was doing it. So they're like, "Oh, you're actually, like, really great to talk to." And, like, a lot of times we would spend the whole time talking, and I'm like, one
Mhm.
guy, we hung out, and we just chatted the whole time, and he's like, "This was really nice, thank you." And I'm like, do you wanna, like, see my tits or something?" And he's like, "No, no, no, I just this was a really great conversation." And I'm like, "Well, alrighty then. Thank
Yeah.
you."
I mean, like with sugar daddies and with like potential clients and stuff too, like a lot of it really is like they need companionship. They're
Mhm.
lonely. They need someone to talk to like, you know, vent and get things off your chest. Like there is that whole aspect. Like I mean, like a lot of my sugar daddies were completely platonic.
Yeah. Oh,
You
well.
know, and like those exist, and people are like, did you have sex with them? Like, no, I didn't. Like, I did have my fair share of people I had sex with for sure,
Yeah.
but the other people exist as well that just like need a bit of like comfort.
Yeah, and, I found, like, when I first started, I was like, "Oh my god," and just these are all gonna be, like, scum of the earth people, and they're not, like, maybe the ones at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, but some of the clients that I had are just, like, normal dudes that just want companionship, like you said, and, like, I think that is such a good way to go about it, like, if a man just wants to get laid, but doesn't and, like, talk with somebody for an hour, like normally he would have to sell himself on a dating site and be like, "Oh yeah, I want a long-term relationship," and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
And then I find I'd rather have a guy pay for sex than try to get sex from someone and then ditch them. You know?
yeah, which happens too, and like
Oh
yeah,
God,
there's
so
just
many
a
times.
lot more like emotional investment involved with
Yeah,
that, with dating apps and stuff too. So I'm also like of the nature of like, okay, yeah, if you want to pay for a professional, we can definitely do that for you.
yeah,
Um, I also want to bring up one last topic as
yeah.
well, and talking about getting scammed by people within the sex industry as well. So
Mhm.
not just pimps, but also like experienced sex workers. I don't know, and I know you have some stories to share as well, but I'd love to hear about it if you want to
Yeah. So
elaborate. Yeah.
there was another girl I met through a friend, and we worked together a few times. She was really lovely, but like super, super, super addicted to cocaine. Like just a crazy lady.
Oh no.
Lots of fun, but like just older, been in the industry for a long time, and we got to chatting. We did a couple duo calls, and then and she got I guess she got jealous or something and was like, "Oh,
Mm.
my client was trying to book you." Like, no, that's not how this works. And she's like, "If you want to book with my client, you can pay me $150." And
Oh,
I'm like, "What? No." Like,
yeah. For
no.
who?
If he wants to see me, then he can see me. I'm like, "I'm not paying you. Are you
Yeah,
insane?"
you're not part of this
And then
equation.
yeah, and like so she like again, she was somebody that's been doing it since she was a teenager and like using drugs to cope. And I guess $150 would buy you a good amount of cocaine.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, like, and who like, says who? Like, if a client wants to see you, then that's the client's prerogative. They can do whatever the hell they want, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I like if I had met another girl in the industry and was friends with them, I wouldn't be like, okay, so if you want to see my client, then you pay me. I'm like, I'm not being a fucking pimp. That's like why I got out of
Mhm.
that in the first place. Like, I'm not paying somebody for my hard work.
No,
And
totally.
sometimes it was hard work.
It can be really hard work for sure. Like sex work is work, right? So that's really disappointing to hear because I've also heard other instances too that people have shared with me, like, oh, like just unfortunately more, I guess, I don't want to say experience, but like maybe more jaded
Mhm.
sex workers, maybe giving misleading advice or not providing the care and support that the rest of the industry does.
Well, yeah,
And
and like,
yeah,
and you probably like as a when you're working and you've been working for years and years and years, you're bound to get a little bit jaded. Just like I was working in the service industry for a long time, and it got to the point where I'm like, this fucking sucks, and I hate everybody. And so, like,
that's me
just
too.
imagine adding sex into the mix, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really exhausting and disappointing to hear that. And I don't know if it's just people I was talking to that this happened a lot, like in the industry a long time ago, like in the 80s and the 90s. And them saying, like, well, the world is, and the industry is kind of shifting now too, because it's a lot of like camaraderie and
Mhm.
support and like people wanting to help now. So I don't know if it's just a thing of the past or of that time, but that's
And that's
kind of
great
a
to
common
hear.
theme, which is a great thing, yeah, which I also wanted to talk about too, as
Yeah.
well, like how nice it is to have this support, because we were talking about how isolating and how lonely this industry can be when you're doing it alone. Like when I started sugaring, I was alone. I had no one to talk to. No one I knew was in sex work. And like that was like taboo. And there's all this shame and stigma and all this stuff all the time. And then now there's like blogs and articles and podcasts and Discord groups and Facebook groups and Reddit and like
Yeah.
so much
I
out there.
There was one girl that had posted an ad about like she had a condo, so you could work out of there and pay her like a day rate kind of thing. And she was so nice, and I was like, oh my god, it's so nice to meet somebody also in the industry, and that like she seemed really nice. Everything went really well, and then I fucked it up. And if she hears it ever, I am so sorry,
Oh,
but like she rented me the place, and then I ended up seeing a client a little while later at my own place, and I was telling him this story, and I'm like, "Oh, it's so great, blah blah blah." And then he asked about her, and he's like, "Oh," and he's like, "I want to see her." And I'm like, "No." I'm like, and he's like, "No, no." And then I'm so fucked out of my mind on like cocaine, and like, he's like, "No, no, no. We'll just drive there. I'll go knock on the door." And I'm like, "No." And then we ended up doing it anyway, and we drove down there, like, press a button and that, and then she messaged me, and she's like, "That was so unprofessional. Never ever call me again. That's fucked up." And I'm like, "That is fucked up."
that is
I
fucked up,
I
dude.
was so, like, messed up at that time in my life, and I felt so bad. I'm like, "I am so sorry. That's, like, beyond unprofessional."
Yeah, that's
Um,
scary too.
yeah, and that
Really
guy was
scary.
fucked. Like,
Oh,
so
shit.
yeah, yeah.
Damn. I mean, hopefully, hopefully no one else repeats that mistake.
Don't bring your coked out client somewhere without permission from where you're going.
Yes, definitely. Huge, huge, huge red flag and safety concern, right? So,
Mhm, mhm.
FYI. But I mean, like, yeah, I could understand where she's coming from, and also, like, I mean, it's nice that she was doing that, and it's
Yeah,
great to have that. And like, I wish we had more resources like that when we both started out,
yeah,
right? And that support.
exactly.
Yeah, it's I mean, I'm glad to see that the landscape is now changing. I would say in a positive direction, which is nice. There's still like some ugly bits and dark corners here and there, but I feel like in general there's just like a lot more positivity that is surrounding the industry as well, which I'm hoping that will help initiate some more change, like with laws
Oh,
and everything as
totally.
well. Yeah.
There is
So,
it's I'm so grateful for that it is opening up a little bit more. Because yeah, when we started, it was just like it was kind of taboo, and like when before I started doing it, I was one of those girls that's like, "That's disgusting. I can't believe she would
mhm.
do that with her body." And like,
Yeah.
and I think the reason for that is because I was so insecure at that time in my life that I just judged other women. And now I'm like, get that money, girl, use that pussy.
Right?
Like,
Totally.
right? Yeah. And it I guess it took that breakup. And after we broke up, again, just like the worst time in my life, I I had lost a bunch of weight and like was exercising, and like it got to the point where I was very narcissistic, and I was like, I look good. I should, hey, looking in the mirror, like I should. Can I make money off this? Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to kind of go into some stories of scamming to go along
Yes,
with
please.
episode 2 in terms of what some people have submitted
Mhm.
from social. So I'm going to go ahead and read some things out. If you want to chime in, Alexis, feel free to.
Awesome.
um, but yeah, there's someone wrote in, and this is a long time ago. I didn't attach any names just to have some anonymity and protect
Mhm.
people as well. So I'm sorry if you wanted your name called out, but I didn't do that for any of these. So sorry. Um, someone made a fake pornographic content page posing as me. That's so common nowadays too. Like people making like fake OnlyFans accounts or like
Mhm.
Fansly or like any other fan sites. Like that even happened to me too, like last
Yeah.
year, which is like
Really.
super annoying. Yeah, and like they try to set up a link, and they think they try to like get fans and people to subscribe
Mhm.
to those pages when it's obviously like that's obviously not me. I just have the one like
Yeah. Well, I think that's a problem with like having like OnlyFans is great, but then it's like there are way too many untrustworthy people that will record it and throw it on Pornhub, you know?
yes, and that too, which is
Um,
like fucked
and
up.
it's so fucked up. I don't have, I'm sure that there is porn of me somewhere on the internet. But
Yeah.
I haven't come across it yet. But yeah, because I used to send a lot of nudes or videos. I never had an OnlyFans, but yeah, it's a common thing.
It's very common, which is why it's really important to watermark all of your images, take out and
Mhm.
strip out all the metadata off of your images and videos. Try to take those steps to protect your identity. And also,
I don't even know what metadata is.
oh shit. It's like the stuff, the information that like shows your geographic
Location.
location, yeah,
Uh,
on your phone and stuff. But there's like programs that you can download that can strip that data off so you won't be like identified or like pinpointed or like people won't stalk you and stuff too.
I have made some mistakes.
I have also made mistakes as well. So you're not alone in this. This is a common one too. People at the club have refused to pay, which is why I always get paid upfront, even if it's just $20. Yep,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
100%. 100%.
Mhm.
Since I made the transition from, I guess, being an agency to going independent, I've been receiving bizarre DMs from quote unquote providers who are pressing me to either meet with their assistant or produce content with them that I'm not comfortable with.
Mm.
That's a new one. Like have
Oh,
you heard of
yeah.
that one? That's
No, I haven't.
crazy. Yeah, I guess there's so many scammers and they're just trying to provide like new and unique ways to scam us or scam our clients and regulars, right? So we just gotta
Oh, I just that was reminded me. I think like the funniest messages that I got back then was like, oh, like it would be from dudes like, oh, do you want to do a session with me and like I can be the guy in your porno, and I'm like, so, you want me to fuck you for free? I don't think so, buddy.
I've also received those messages too, and I'm like, ha ha ha, is this a joke?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, if I need dick, I can find dick.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't have a problem with that. What else is here? The importance of having an awesome mentor who gave me great advice. New sex workers might be at a disadvantage if they don't have connections when they start out.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So much yes to that. I think we talked about that a lot. It's so good to have the support, good to talk to someone and kind of bounce ideas back if you're starting out to inquire.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's so many resources out there nowadays, so go get
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Get your
um,
money, girl.
get your money exactly. People asking for dominatrix services for the price of a dance, knowing it should cost way more money.
Ugh. Sad. Yeah, if you want something specialized, it's gonna cost more.
It's always going to cost more. And I don't know where these people even got that idea. But I mean, if they know it's already going to cost more, they're, I guess, probably preying on, again, new or rookie sex workers
Yeah.
that, might
Totally.
not have an idea on pricing.
Yes, and oh, that was the biggest turnoff I think in that industry is like guys that would try to barter. And I'm like,
Yes. Oh, fuck. I hate that.
like I know what I'm worth, and like it is the like I'm definitely not going to see you now because you're trying to get a cheaper price, and like I know what I'm worth. This is my time. This is what it costs, and don't try to barter with me, sir.
Yeah. Such a turnoff. Like, don't lowball me. Like, this is
Yeah,
my
and like you
price.
wouldn't do that. You wouldn't like go get a massage and be like, can I pay like $10 less?
Yeah. Go to a restaurant and be like, actually, can I get this for $20?
Yeah, yeah,
It just doesn't happen. Like, and people need to treat this as like this is a real job for many of us, and this is how
yeah,
we make our money. Don't freaking like this is not up for negotiation
exactly.
at all. And like another thing I was going to say too is just like when they comment on like, oh, but this model sold me this video for this price.
Well, then go use her videos. Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. It's like very, very frustrating and really, really exhausting, especially in the realm of online work. It's just like
Mhm.
a lot of that.
Yeah.
um, okay, here's a comment from a client. So it's certainly damaging to the honest sex workers out there that want a deposit applied to secure an appointment. And because of this portion, I feel it is rife with scammers.
Mhm.
So they request deposit and then either ghost you or come up with another reason or something else that they need more money for.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, that's fucked up too. And that's why
Fucked
like
up.
and I can see that like that would work for the really like high end escorts, the ones that have their own sites and like they do $1,000 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's fine because they require a reference from
Hmm.
somebody else and your actual driver's license. That's fine. But like what I was doing, I'm like, I can't do that. Like I had loads of times where guys just wouldn't show up or whatever. But I always just made sure to meet at a public place. And when that happened, it was like, well, that's shitty, but whatever.
Yeah, like it's really great to have your security filters out there and to have your safety measures put in place, but also know that that also comes from a place of privilege.
Hmm.
Not all sex workers cannot afford to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yes. I definitely recognize my privilege here. So yeah.
yeah, so just to note that. And
Yes.
then I guess the last one again from another client. So it's like I know I've given my share of money away to the deposit issue. So I'm sure I've also now missed on some great company because I refuse to do deposits now.
Hmm. Yeah. No, and that's the sad part that it like we were saying, it makes it harder for honest people, and you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, and also just like it's a safety thing for the sex workers too, like to take a
Mhm.
deposit, and that's to me pretty standard.
Yeah.
But of course, if this client has been burned and burned and burned repeatedly, and has been ghosted, and people have taken their money without providing any services, I could understand and also feel for this person too that they're
Yes.
like, well, I'm not going to do this anymore because then like I'm just repeating the same mistake over and over again,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Totally.
So again, it goes both ways, people.
Hmm.
So that was the episode on scamming. We shared a lot today. I mean, hopefully, I mean, I'm sure we didn't cover everything, but like I think we covered quite a bit of ground on this episode, which I'm pretty excited about. Thank you, Alexis, so much for your time today on coming to join me on the show today, and I'm glad we were able to connect. Um,
Thank you for having me.
you're so welcome. But like before I let you go, is there anywhere that people can find you if you want to be found? Question mark?
Yeah, you can just you can contact. I'll go through you.
Yeah.
You can give them my Instagram.
Yeah. So if we want to get in touch with Alexis to touch base or you share any comments or feedback or anything like that, if you want to get in touch with her, feel free to DM me and I'd be happy to send her a message to see if she's okay receiving that. And then I'll be able to connect you too, just to protect her identity because she's no longer like no longer face out, does not do full service anymore, does not do any of that, and wants to live a different life now. So FYI. But Alexis, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. That was a great conversation.
Thank you so much. And don't forget, everyone, it is new episodes every single Sunday at midnight Pacific Standard Time. Don't forget to like, rate, share, review, and subscribe. You can now rate on Spotify. So I really would appreciate some nice 5-star ratings there. Also, I've just launched my Patreon as well, because a lot of people have been asking about, hey, are you going to have a Patreon? Like, where can I send money to? You're doing great work for the industry and for the world. So it is patreon.com/stripbysia. And there's different tiers there and ways that you can support. And just know that your money is going towards the show and making it better, so I could bring on better guests, update my equipment, spend a bit of time. There's a lot of work that is to be done on the show that people don't do it, that don't know about. And I'm doing this alone. So
and your audio sounds great. Like when I listen to the shows, because sometimes some of the audio is just awful. So
yes. Thank you. I really appreciate that. By the way, thank you. But that's it for this week. Catch you all in for a new episode next Sunday. Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Strip by Sia, hosted, produced, and edited by Steph Sia, artwork by Maria Bellandarama, music by Ted D, and photography by Ian Dabern.